Hello and welcome everyone who is joining us today for another SIU Alumni live chat. We've got our guest coming in here shortly, but um, before I get into that topic, there's a couple of housekeeping items we want to make people aware of. Coming up here in just a few days is our deadline for our national call for board of directors members for the SIU Alumni Association. We're doing this as our first time ever. It's our national call for anyone who thinks they want to put themselves up as a candidate for serving on our board of directors, which helps guide us in terms of our fiscal management or an overall direction of the association for the future. We're looking for some new board members in 2022, and that could be you if you want to be. If you want to be considered, visit our website at siualumni.com. The deadline for it is Friday, by the end of Friday. So do get in your materials before then, and we'll certainly give those a review. Also, you can check out siualumni.com for other events that we have coming up. We'll be starting fresh with some new gatherings early in 2022. So I make sure you sign up. There are some things you can sign up for and register right now. So that takes it up. That takes care of the housekeeping for the moment. But I wanted to bring in our guest today, who is Dr. Alan Walters. He's a professor of vegetable science and breeding in the School of Agriculture now at SIU. And he has been in the news recently, featured for his work that he's doing regarding pumpkins. And it's no accident that we decided to take on the topic of pumpkins a week before Thanksgiving and right in the middle of fall. I think there's this uh, dedicated zeitgeist of people who put pumpkin everything out there during the fall season. And I think certainly Dr. Walters is one of them, but I'll let him introduce himself a little bit and then we'll go into a little bit about the research that he's doing. Dr. Walters?
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Alan Walters. I've been here at SIU since 1998. So I've spent quite a bit of time learning the industry here in the state. Uh, Illinois is a leading state in pumpkin production in the United States. So it is a large part of our economy, and a large part of our ag segment in the state is pumpkins. We produce, uh, I think, 500 million pounds out of 1.3 billion pounds. So we produce quite a significant amount of pumpkins in the state. And I got really interested in developing some pumpkin varieties with a little bit of heat tolerance in them because we get really hot here in southern Illinois during the summertime. And right when the pumpkins are flowering to set fruit, the temperatures oftentimes are 95, 100 degrees heat index in early August. So we wanted to kind of develop some varieties that could withstand some of that heat. Because when temperatures get above 90 degrees, a lot of pumpkin flowers just abort. The plant's just trying to go in survival mode at that point. But there are some germplasm materials out there that we uh, found that had a little bit more heat tolerance in them, and we wanted to kind of develop some varieties that would help some of the growers here in southern Illinois to get higher yields. When we grow a similar variety that they would grow in northern Illinois, that pumpkin in northern Illinois is going to be at least a third larger in size. You're going to get higher yields because the temperatures are right. Pumpkins like to grow about 75 to 85 degrees. So when it gets above that 90-degree threshold, we start to lose our yield potential. And the plant kind of goes in survival mode, and it's trying to survive and is not pushing a lot of that photosynthate into the pumpkin fruit. So we're getting a reduction in pumpkin size. So we're trying to find if those heat tolerant pumpkins will actually give us a larger size pumpkin than what we normally would get if we grew some of the other varieties that are readily available. And I've grown some of those many years, and oftentimes we don't even get any fruit being produced because of the issue with the temperatures being too hot here in southern Illinois. So it's not only us, uh, but other surrounding states, southern Indiana, southern Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, northern Alabama. I get calls from northern Alabama, from Virginia, from North Carolina, trying to find some varieties that have a little more heat tolerance that they can kind of grow those. So this kind of exploded out of this because we're looking now at climate change, possibly increasing temperatures in the state, and we may have to have something that has a little more heat tolerance in future years to come. Uh, Maybe 50, 75, 100 years down the road, we're going to need that heat tolerance in those pumpkin varieties just to grow those pumpkins to kind of keep up with the demand that we have today. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an introduction to me and what I've kind of accomplished with this issue on heat tolerant pumpkins.
Yeah, just for a little bit of context, and you mentioned it before that Illinois is one of the largest pumpkin producers in the nation. Libby's Pumpkin uh, company that I think we all know or see at the grocery store. It's based out of Morton, Illinois, and Southern Illinois certainly has always had a hand in contributing to that overall harvest each year. But what when did this problem kind of start to arise? Has Southern Illinois always been at a disadvantage over its general climate as opposed to Northern Illinois, or has that been exacerbated as changes in the climate are experienced across the
Well,
nation?
we've always had the issue, and I think it's going to get worse. So the issue is trying to solve that issue before it becomes a larger issue.
Yeah.
We want to kind of get a head start on it before the temperatures get too hot that we really can't. We're in a marginal pumpkin environment, really. It's just really too hot to do an effective job in growing pumpkins. When I'm talking about the lower Midwest and upper South, it's marginal environment for growing pumpkins. It's not the best environment, but people are there. People want to go to pumpkin patches. People want to go out in the fall, see all the autumn decorations. So, and you want to try to buy as local as you can. So, it's part of who we are in the autumn is pumpkins, and we're trying to kind of solve some of these issues. And I think the issues are going to get worse, like you were saying. We have always had those issues, but I think with rising temperatures and the way that temperatures have been increasing in the last 160 years, we're going to kind of have more problems to deal with that issue in the future.
And I wanted to mention that your that topic is getting or has gotten some national attention recently. You might, if anyone out there is a news watcher, you might recognize Dr. Walters and some others. Actually, are right there are one of our board members on the Alumni Association board. Wayne Searles was featured as part of a CBS Mornings report on this. I guess that was a couple of weeks ago as well. So I think it's something that's getting national attention because of the fact that Illinois is a pumpkin producing state. What's kind of the demand for this product these days? Is it something that's only gotten more as time goes on, or what's the demand these days, and how and why is this important to help meet that?
The demand seems to be increasing every year. 20 years ago, pumpkins were a big deal, but not like it is today. Everybody wants to go out to a local pumpkin patch, take their kids, go grab a few pumpkins at the market and carve some jack-o'-lanterns. So I think the demand is getting more and more and more. And as you see on the the video here, there's a lot of interest in pumpkin type products. Just a lot of different pumpkin type products that are on the marketplace these days.
Hmm.
In the fall, everybody wants to go to Dairy Queen, get a pumpkin pie blizzard, right?
Right.
A lot of different. I've even seen pumpkin granola bars and pumpkin granola at stores, and there's just a lot of interest in pumpkin latte, as the guy says. Uh,
Right.
there's a lot of interest in pumpkins. But the pumpkins we're primarily trying to develop heat tolerance in are the ornamental varieties. I haven't really kind of went into the processing or pie mix type pumpkins. It's you see on the back of my truck there, those orange ones. Those are the ones that we're really trying to work with.
Decorative, but obviously there's demand for those as well, obviously, because everyone loves to set those up around the house. Um, I'd say there's certainly no demand for that, and or there's certainly a demand for that, and people want them to. It's kind of a product that needs to last through a lot of October and pretty much all the way into November as well.
Mhm.
A lot of the times. Tell me what kind of is your process? How did this process get started for developing this heat tolerance in there? What do you have to do to a pumpkin to kind of start making it naturally a little bit more resistant to the climate in which it finds itself down here?
Well, we took some germplasm that we knew had some heat tolerance in it, uh, and made crosses with some of the more widely grown varieties. And then we started doing evaluations and seeing what the effect of heat was on those selections that we were making in the field to
Hmm.
try to get something that had a higher amount of heat tolerance. And we have one line right now that's really pretty good. It kind of looks really nice and has a good uh, size for that type of pumpkin we're looking for. A nice handle, nice color, and it also has a pretty good yield. So there are some stress type pumpkins that they're marketing for varieties out there, but the yield are really low. There's one that's a really nice looking pumpkin, but it produces less than one pumpkin per plant, which is just not sustainable for a grower. We're looking at like 1.5 to 2 pumpkins per plant on average is where we need to be to kind of for people to make profit. So we're trying to look at those crosses that we made with that heat tolerant germplasm uh, with some of the more currently available varieties to get something that will be very good in heat tolerance and have high quality and high yield is what we're really trying to achieve.
Okay, and tell me a little bit about what the economic impact of this is right now and could be if the yields continue to stagnate or start to decrease as they. I mean, what does that mean to the Southern Illinois regional economy if that crop or harvest is in decline?
Well, you saw Wayne Searles on there, and he has a large pumpkin farm just south of Carbondale, and he used to grow a lot of vegetables. He said we just don't grow vegetables anymore because it's not sustainable,
Right.
because they have issues with growing vegetables. So now that niche has kind of been filled with pumpkins. So we have to kind of, if the temperatures start rising, we have to kind of go about and find a way to be able to produce those uh, even with the hotter temperature. So that's what my research is. We're trying to develop these pumpkin varieties so we'll have something out there for now as well as in the future for pumpkin production. And it's hard to kind of say what the economic impact is because it's tremendous.
Hmm.
uh, because there's so many pumpkin patches that are out there. There's so many pumpkins that people buy in supermarkets or in roadside stands. People go out in the fall just looking to get outside before they have to kind of stay inside during the winter. They just want to get out with their children and enjoy the fall. So it's really hard to explain the economic impact, but it is tremendous.
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely brings people to Southern Illinois to experience these kind of things because I mean, I guess there's relatively few places here in the United States where pumpkins are actually grown in this kind of quantity. So we're not only are we kind of is not only is Illinois is kind of the nerve center for um, supplying pumpkin for the nation, it's also a bit of a unique in terms of just the atmosphere that it can provide for people looking for that type of family autumn activity as well.
And I
Um,
think a lot of people didn't even realize it that Illinois is such a leader in
right.
pumpkin production. We have corn and soybeans everywhere. You don't see pumpkin fields like that, but there's about 30,000 acres of pumpkins grown in the state, about
Yeah.
half and half processing and the ornamental jack-o'-lantern types. So it's a lot of acreage of pumpkins grown in this state
Right.
compared to other states. Indiana has a little bit. Uh, there's other states, Pennsylvania, New York, Michigan have quite a bit of pumpkin production. California is actually number two after Illinois in
Okay.
pumpkin production. But uh, a lot of places you can't grow pumpkins. You can't grow pumpkins in Florida. You can't do a good job of growing them in hot areas.
Right.
So Texas, all those areas, there's huge populations in those areas that want pumpkins, and those pumpkins have to come from somewhere, and they're being shipped
Yeah.
from Illinois and other states that are producing pumpkins.
Yeah. So yeah, despite appearances, it's definitely not a boutique product here and in the state. Um, you said you'd done a lot of work mostly with decorative pumpkins on this, and you're
Yeah,
working on it from this. And I imagine that's because is it a little harder to work with the varieties that would be used for consumption? Because does doing this introduce the possibility of changing the properties of it to make it less workable for consumption or processing or whatever else that happens?
well, when you're processing, you have to fit certain standards with flesh and with water and everything. And if we went that route, it would it's a little more difficult to kind of do with the tasting and all that because you have to have the right pumpkin with the right taste and the right consistency and no strings in the flesh. And it's a totally different species anyway. It's very closely related to butternut squash.
Okay.
It's Cucurbita machata, where we're working with Cucurbita pepo, which is more like a squash. Zucchini squash is a cucurbita pepo, just like the typical jack-o'-lantern ornamental types that we've been working on. So it's a little bit different situation.
But is it possible that it has to go in that direction, given the fact that if climate continues to warm up in those areas and it starts to impact the yield on those crops, do you eventually have to start working toward that area, getting that maybe a more heat resistant pumpkin, but also one that I guess essentially tastes the same or can be used in the
Yeah,
same manner?
at some point it's going to have to probably
Okay.
have to happen. There may be heat tolerance in those lines already. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
What have you kind of learned along this process in this process that you didn't expect necessarily when you started? From the idea that, well, maybe we can start breeding in some more resistant qualities to this line of pumpkins, to now, and where do you expect to take it from here?
It just takes a long time to get it done. We made our initial crosses in 2014, and we're starting to see some of the lines kind of come out of there that have pretty good quality. But it's just taken a long time to get it. And it's a lot of work because we have to evaluate a lot of pumpkins every year,
Yeah.
make the crosses in the field every year, which takes time. We got to get out there late in the evening, cover the flowers so the bees don't get on them, and then come back the next morning and make those crosses. And we do that for like 2 straight weeks.
Hmm.
That's a lot of work. And uh, going out twice a day in the evening and then in the morning the next day. Uh, so it takes a lot of effort to do it and then do the evaluations and determine what uh, we see as a potential future for a variety that we want because there's so many different shapes and sizes and colors of ornamental pumpkins and it's really kind of uh, a difficult process to kind of go through.
Right. And where is your goal at on this as well? Are you looking to make these pumpkins resistant to, where in a worst case scenario we expect to be within the next few decades, on average temperature wise, or is there a set number that you're just looking to get to and hope for the best from that? But what's kind of the goal? What would you like to see? Where do you say, yes, we've successfully developed a pumpkin that isn't going to take too much of an impact from being grown down here in this area, given the general climate that we experience year over year?
I would like to release maybe 6, 7, 8 varieties. That's my ultimate goal to get to that point.
Okay.
And that takes a lot of effort to get to that point. And also, we have to think about other things when we're going through the breeding process. Like we're looking for a little bit of disease tolerance as well.
Hmm.
and their powdery mildew, and some of the growth, the vigor. Some plants are more vigorous in growth than others, and we're looking for those that can kind of grow a little bit better under the hot conditions instead of kind of wane when it gets kind of hot, and make sure it has different types of fruit characteristics. Some are more elongated, some are more round, some have really good handles.
Hmm.
Some are dark orange, some are lighter orange. So we want to kind of hit the whole gambit, so to speak, and try
Okay.
to get a little bit of all those different types of pumpkins. Some that are more squatty and round. Uh, so we're just trying to kind of do a few different things.
Okay. So it's not only resistance in itself, but there's a certain aesthetic quality that you're trying to maintain as you do these kind of things. Is there any sort of natural tendency or characteristics that a pumpkin will start to take as you start to introduce these more resistant elements into it? Or is there something that essentially, is there something that happens to the pumpkins that you try not to let happen as
No,
you
I
do?
really haven't seen anything.
Okay.
Because the heat tolerant lines that we use were pumpkin lines. So it's just that they weren't being grown much anymore
Okay.
because they didn't have the quality characteristics that some of the newer stuff did. And the way that uh, the commercial seed companies are today, they want a global product. They want a product that works everywhere. So they'll have a pumpkin and they want it to work in New York, in North Carolina, in Tennessee, in California, in Wisconsin. So they want a pumpkin that works everywhere, and that's almost impossible.
Right.
In the past, they used to have these niche areas where they would have varieties that would be specific to some areas, like the lower Midwest, upper South, that they would fit into. But the market is not that huge. So they kind of pulled those off the shelf. And that's why a lot of pumpkin growers were calling me because some of these lines that did so well for many, many years, they pulled those off and you can't get them anymore. So those heat tolerant lines that were being grown in those areas are not really around that much anymore.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about the team of students or researchers that you have working specifically on this project? What kind of experience and time are they getting to kind of experiment with this?
Well, they get to learn about plant breeding and see how we go through the process of breeding new varieties and how we do it in the field. All our crosses are made in the field, not in the greenhouse. So we only get one generation a year.
Hmm.
And we've had grad students, uh, undergrad students go through the vegetable program and get that experience in there. I can't give you an actual number because it's been since 2014, and a lot of
Right.
students have went through the vegetable program since then.
Right. But I mean, definitely, it's a project with some legs, and most assuredly, a number of students and researchers have
Mm-hmm.
gotten a hand to work on it. So, um, uh, you know, fascinating stuff. It's kind of interesting stuff that we do here at the university all the time. That you just on at first glance you wouldn't necessarily think too much about, but then again, you could think, well, by the time October arrives, or in the case sometimes around my house, by the time the 4th of July is done and over with, everyone's starting to start decorating for the fall.
Mm-hmm.
They start looking for these types of products, and if they're not there, I think people would notice that on the end.
It's a
So
huge economic impact. It's a
yeah,
huge economic impact until you realize how many pumpkins are actually grown and sold in the United States. It's tremendous. It's
yeah.
just, everybody wants to decorate their homes, get ready for Halloween, have a couple of jack o' lanterns for the kids for trick or treating, and it's just a tremendous product that we can't afford to lose.
Okay. Well, Dr. Walters, thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with us today to talk about this research. This kind of stuff we like to bring to the alumni or anyone who is willing to listen, to let them know about some of the work that's being done right here at SIU on important issues like this. So I thank you for your time, and I thank everyone else for joining us today. And for anyone who will catch this, not who can't catch this live right now, but will who inevitably stumble upon it later and watch. Have a good rest of the day. And Dr. Walters, thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me. Kind of talk a little bit about this research I'm so excited about, right?
All right.
And I
Yep.
think there's a lot of other people excited about it too. I get a lot of requests for speaking about heat tolerant pumpkins, and CBS kind of pushed it over the top, right? So
Well,
thanks for having me.
that's good. So thank you very much, and everyone have a good day.